Last September, President Yoweri Museveni met a consortium proposing to build an airport at Nyakisharara, about 9.5 kilometers from Mbarara city along the Mbarara-Uganda road. The site currently hosts a small government airfield. By February 2026, the president had directed Prime Minister Robin Nabanja to fast-track approvals, effectively giving the project a green light to proceed to the next stage.
A big company known as B7 to establish a mega international airport at Nyakisharara in Mbarara.
According to the proposal, the airport would cover 21 square kilometers and feature two 5.5-kilometer runways and a 3.7-kilometer VIP runway. Developers say they are targeting long-haul transit traffic between China and Brazil, aiming to capture up to 30% of that market. But how viable is this project?
They're talking about two 5.5-kilometer runways for commercial operation and a reserved 3.7-kilometer VIP runway. Because what on earth is a VIP runway and what is the justification for it? It just shows that this is a project that has been created to pander to someone's ego rather than a project that is based upon commercial terms.
Most of the aviation experts in the country that we reached out to declined to comment on the project. However, aviation expert Sean Mendes, familiar with the Africa aviation market, says if realized, the facility would rank among the largest in the world, which has raised mixed reactions.
Effectively be, by today's numbers, the 11th largest airport in the world. And to achieve that would require that not just will they be generating new demand in Mbarara particularly, but they will grow the total number of passengers traveling to, from, or within Uganda by multiple 1,000%. Which quite simply is ridiculous. It is very difficult for anyone to take this purported business case seriously.
In a recent interview with the Daily Monitor newspaper, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Works, Waiswa Bagea, confirmed that the project is still in its early stages, with only a memorandum of understanding signed. This raises questions about Uganda's ability to deliver a fully operational international airport from scratch in less than 5 years, given several missed completion deadlines for ongoing government projects such as Kabalega International Airport. The Director General of the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority, Fred Bamwesige, says expanding Nyakisharara Airfield is possible, but it is still too early to discuss the extent of the expansion.
It is always possible for proposals to come talking about different things, either bigger or small things. But when they are brought to a discussion on the table, to consider all those regulatory, economic factors of sustainability, the existing ground conditions, and so on, then we come up with what realistically is possible.
Aviation analysts have raised concerns about demand and viability. Sean says that passenger traffic between China and Brazil, a core market for the project, is currently small.
The number of passengers traveling between China and Brazil is actually not that high. It's only about 250,000 passengers a year, which, to put in context, is less than the number of passengers who fly between Uganda and Dubai every year. So, you can take that, but to actually achieve the kind of numbers that they're looking at, that will need to grow by, 4,000 times in order to make the kind of numbers that they're looking at to make this scale of project somewhat viable.
At present, there are no direct flights between Brazil and China. Most passengers traveling from these regions connect to Uganda via major hubs such as Dubai and Addis Ababa, among others. Air transport remains critical to Uganda's socio-economic development. Uganda handles more than 2.5 million passengers annually, almost entirely through Entebbe International Airport. establishing a mega international airport would require substantial growth in passenger numbers. A key justification for the project is its geography, which positions Uganda as a midpoint on long-haul routes between Asia and South America. However, that argument is also under scrutiny.
You could as well say Entebbe is also midway, because with aviation, you find those are just a few nautical miles, the difference between here and Mbarara. So how comes that Entebbe was not probably put into this concept since it's already in existence? I think to me, that was just a selling point to the government, to the president, that it is midway, you can stop and refuel. Refueling midway is normally something that is highly unlikely in aviation, especially if you're doing airline business. That's why you see, for example, Ethiopian Airways, it has a route from here, let's say to London, but does not go direct to London. It has to go to the hub, which is Addis Ababa, Bole International. Now, in this case, if that airport is completed, what is the strategic plan? Is it going to be a hub of some airline? That is what I would ask first. Because it's not just about putting the infrastructure there, the airport, and you say it's going to be a refueling point.
There's not a history of success of hubs that are built solely to capture third-party traffic. So when you are trying to build a hub in one country to capture traffic solely traveling between two other countries, this has not proven to be successful. There are a number of these projects that are littered all over the world where, billions of dollars have been spent on infrastructure that literally is now called ghost airports or ghost towns, because quite simply the demand never materialized to the level that the promoters sold their funders and the governments who wound up backing that project, and subsequently regretted it.
Globally, traffic between Asia and South America is already served via established hubs in Europe and Middle East, including Madrid, Doha, among others. Regional players such as Ethiopian Airlines are already active on these routes. Now, across East Africa and the wider region, countries are expanding aviation capacity in response to real demand. Ethiopia, home to Africa's largest and most successful airline, is building a $12.5 billion international airport at Bishoftu, nearly 30 miles southeast of Addis Ababa, with a capacity of more than 100 million passengers a year. The project aims to ease pressure on Bole International Airport, already one of Africa's busiest aviation hubs, which is nearing capacity and has limited room for expansion. Bishoftu is the largest in a wave of airport investments across Africa, including Rwanda's $2 billion Bugesera International Airport. Bugesera is designed to handle 7 million passengers a year in its first phase, rising to 14 million over time. Like the proposed Mbarara Airport, some of these projects are targeting completion of their initial phases by 2030.
I think the key difference between comparing Uganda with, say, Addis Ababa or even, say, Nairobi or other places is that those places have a developed aviation infrastructure and a strong home-based carrier, which has demonstrated demand which the existing facilities cannot yet meet. Uganda effectively has a failed national carrier, for the third time now, and has demonstrated it's incapable of running a state-linked airline properly. So to assume now that all this will change and that the stars will align perfectly so that a business case based upon demand externalized to the country itself will suddenly be a magic potion to some sort of aviation success is just a pipe dream. And, it is unfortunately this kind of dreams which are sold to those in power which have led to waste of billions of dollars of taxpayer money.
In Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport is expanding to ease congestion and increase capacity from 7.5 million to 22 million passengers. It's an aviation showdown in the region, a race for Africa's skies and beyond. But will the proposed Mbarara International Airport be able to compete in the region? By comparison, Uganda is still expanding its aviation base, with Uganda Airlines struggling to maintain a viable network since its revival in 2019. It has had its fair share of problems. Dick Omondi, an aviation commentator in Kenya, adds that for such airports to develop, there must be a clear commercial rationale. He says hubs succeed when there is sufficient traffic to justify them. Without a strong demand, connectivity and airline capacity, new airports risk becoming underused infrastructure.
The hubs have been built, one, on the strength of the carrier, which is, for example, Kenya. The hub has mainly been developed on the strength of Kenya Airways. If you look at Addis Ababa, the hub has been developed mainly on the strength of Ethiopian Airlines. So therefore, it almost seems like the airline or the strength of the hub is built on the strength of the carrier or the airline, which then facilitates the movement.
Some argue the government could have invested in existing infrastructure, especially Entebbe International Airport or Kabalega International Airport, which is reportedly nearing 97% completion, to capture transit traffic between China and Brazil. They question why investors did not consider expanding these facilities into the type of mega international airport proposed in Mbarara rather than initiating new projects.
Because they can't put that here now because we are expanding on our own. So these are new people.
Beyond the runways, a major aviation hub requires extensive supporting infrastructure, including cargo handling facilities, fuel supply systems, hotels, transport networks, healthcare facilities, and reliable utilities such as water and electricity. Economist Fred Muhomza says that even under a build-operate-transfer model, the government would need to invest in utilities, security, healthcare, and connectivity.
Meaning Uganda has a contribution to do. It could be as general as we've said, can you guarantee security? That's not going to be guaranteed by the airport builder. To make sure ADF does not encroach in that area, criminals do not encroach in that area.
Muhomza says the private sector recognizes the potential this proposed airport could bring, but for this project to succeed, there must be dialogue and good relations between neighboring countries.
We may not rule out the economic benefit, much as people may not know, is it the politics, the security, the economics, or the business that is leading this drive? For me, I want to keep all of them in that basket together.
David Kamanya, one of the directors of Base 7 International Aviation Academy Limited, spoke to us by phone, asked why the company came forward with a proposal before conducting a feasibility study. He said, "There is a pre-feasibility study, but we will still have to undertake a comprehensive feasibility study. It is a lengthy and costly process. We are talking about roughly $15 million for the feasibility study alone." Asked about criticism from analysts who argue that the project lacks economic justification, Kamanya said the airport would deliver significant economic benefits to Uganda and the wider African region. Tomorrow, we will take a closer look at the company at the center of this proposal, Base 7. We will examine its history of working with the Ugandan government and assess whether it is suited to undertake a project of this magnitude. Nobat Atkunda, NTV News.